Turn in your Bible to the book of Isaiah. We're deep into the study of this prophet now. You might wonder, wow, Isaiah. You start opening up, and if you were to just turn to Isaiah chapter 30 and start reading that, you might think, how can anyone understand that? What is that prophet talking about? But little by little, as we work through the book, we begin to see the picture of what's happening and understanding the context. And you'd wonder, well, why would we want to spend our time in such a difficult part of the Scriptures? Well, let me tell you something. There's lessons for us to learn here. One of the great things that we learn from these Old Testament prophets is that we had better respect the authority of God and heed His word. God speaks. He speaks to us through His word, and that's the authority. And the world is not going to like it. God does not just tell us, now you just do what makes yourself happy. That's not what God says. God's the authority. And He tells us, and a lot of times we may not understand why God is telling us to do exactly what it is He wants us to do or how we're approaching things. But we learn from these prophets. We need to trust God. And if God tells us what we ought to do and how we ought to live and the things that we need to emphasize, and then we look at that and say, well, I've considered that, and that's just not for me. No, I'm not going to do that. God says, then you are rebellious children, and woe to the rebellious children. Now that's what we're going to read in these two chapters here. Let's learn something about God and our obligation to Him as we go through this. We're in the midst of Isaiah's book of woes, beginning in Isaiah 28 in verse 1. Woe to the drunkards of Ephraim. And then we have a series of woes down to Isaiah 33 in verse 1. Woe to him that spoileth. But today we're going to look at woe to the rebellious children. And woe to them that go down to Egypt for help. Now let me tell you what's going on. Here in Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem up on this hill, this city of David, this fortress city, this capital of all Judea and formerly of all of Israel. But there is off beyond the river Euphrates, and in that valley, a nation arising that is huge and powerful and cruel. It's the nation of Assyria. And the Assyrians are going through all these cities and taking them one by one. And it is frightening to those in Jerusalem. And so those in Jerusalem are saying, what do we do about the rise of Assyria? And God tells them through the prophet, I can take care of this. I'll take care of Assyria, and I'll protect Jerusalem. What you need to do is trust me and just sit still and wait on me. And they consider this and they say, not me. I tell you what we'll do. We will flee into Egypt. That's what we'll do. We'll go to Egypt and we'll find safety there. We're not going to stay here in Jerusalem with Assyria on the rise like this. And so God says, woe to you rebellious children, and woe to you that go to Egypt for refuge. Let's look at the chapter and read it with that understanding, and all of this will start falling in place. Now, I'm not going to pretend I understand every line in this chapter, but we'll get the picture of what's going on here in these verses as we study it. Here's how it begins. Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me. and that cover with a covering, that's their protection, but not of my Spirit, that they may add sin to sin, that walk down to Egypt, but have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. For the princes of Zoan and his ambassadors came to Hanes. Now those are cities in Egypt. Well, they've got their rulers and all. And here come these men and these people, these families from Jerusalem into Egypt. Verse 5, they're all ashamed of a people that could not profit them, nor be of help nor profit, but of shame and also of reproach. Two ways you look at that is this, that they're going to be ashamed when they get to Egypt, and Egypt isn't offering them help, but it looks to me like this is saying, these people in Egypt, you're going to them for help, they're going to be ashamed of you. You can't be a benefit to them. Why should they offer any help to you? Verse 6, talk about the dangerous journey. Yeah, verse 6, the dangerous journey they would take. The burden of the beast of the south into the land of trouble and anguish. They're going to have to cross the Sinai Peninsula to get out into Egypt, and it's a dangerous, troublesome journey you're proposing. It says, from whence come the young and the old lion and the viper and the fiery and the flying serpent. They'll carry their riches on the shoulders of young asses and their treasures on the bunches of camels to a people that shall not profit them. They're going to load up all their beasts of burden, all their earthly goods, try to make his trek across this deserted Sinai Peninsula where there's lions and snakes, and go to a people that can't help. The Egyptians shall help in vain, and to this purpose, therefore have I cried concerning this. Their strength is to sit still. Don't go running off to Egypt. Just sit still. I've got this. I can take care of this. You trust me. Now go write it in a book. Verse 8. Go write it in a book. Write it before them in a table. Note it in a book that it may be for the time to come forever that this is a rebellious people. What makes them so rebellious? They're lying children, and children that will not hear the law of the Lord. Okay, what do we learn from that? We're not going to pay attention to this. Rebellious. Woe to you. That's what the prophet is teaching. They say to the seers, now that's their preachers, the seers. They're saying to seers, see not. And to them that prophesy, here the preachers, prophesy not unto us right things, speak to us smooth things, prophesy deceits. Well, this is what we want to do. Preacher, here's what we want you to do. Tell us that it's just all right. Just do what you want to do. That's what we want to hear from the preacher. Some smooth thing. Smooth all this over. Make us feel good about us deciding to do our way instead of God's way. He says in verse 11 about these that are preaching the truth, he says, get you out of the way. Turn aside out of the path. Cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from before us. Quit telling us what God says, because we want to do what we want to do. Rebellious children. Verse 12. Wherefore thus saith the Holy One of Israel, because ye despise this word, and trust in oppression and perverseness, and stay thereon. Therefore this iniquity shall be to you as a breach ready to fall, a swelling out in a high wall, whose breaking cometh suddenly at an instant. And he shall break it at the breaking of the potter's vessel that is broken in pieces. He shall not spare, so there shall not be found in the bursting of it a shred to take fire from the hearth or to take water withal out of the pit. What do you do with a vessel, one that is broken? Well, you'll take the pieces, and you can just see a big piece of this pottery here. So, well, we use that to scoop up some of the coals of the fire and to move it over here. Oh, well, we'll use this broken piece here to dip water out of the well and gather water with it. No, we're going to break this pottery in so many fine pieces. You won't find a piece big enough to do that with. You're going to be broken that despise his word. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the Holy One of Israel. Here's a word of so much comfort. Look at this. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and confidence will be your strength. The prophet saying, trust me. Just sit still. Don't go running off to Egypt. What's their response to this? Ye would not. You say no. You ever had children do that to you? Tell a little child what to do and they go, no. Rebellious children, aren't they? You don't let your children get away with that. If you do, if you let your 3-year-old get away with standing there saying no to you, what are you going to do with your teenager when they say no? You teach them while they're children, so they'll learn that mom and daddy mean what they say. And then you can have joy through those teenage years with them. But now they're acting like rebellious children. And to turn to what God says, just in rest and confidence, trust me, I've got it. And you say, no, we're not going to do that. We'll flee upon horses. No, you will flee, because they're going to chase you. He says, we'll ride upon the swift. Therefore they that pursue you will be swift. 1,000 shall flee at the rebuke of one, at the rebuke of 5 shall ye flee, till ye be left as a beacon on the top of a mountain and as an ensign on a hill. I've sometimes heard the expression, just like a sheet flapping in the breeze, left out there, and just think of an ensign on a hill, some banner, some spectacle, and that's going to be your example. You'll just be left out there, and that'll be the example for the world to see what happens when people will not trust me. Verse 18, therefore will the Lord wait. And here's what the Lord wants to do. See, he has plans. He says he'll be gracious to you, and therefore he'll be exalted that he may have mercy on you. For the Lord is a God of judgment. Blessed are all they that wait for him. Now you just stay in Jerusalem. You be still. You trust me. You wait on me. I'll bless you. For the people shall dwell in Zion at Jerusalem. Verse 19. This is Isaiah 30:19 for you in the parking lot. Isaiah 30:19. The people shall dwell in Zion at Jerusalem. Thou shalt weep no more. He'll be very gracious unto thee at the voice of thy cry. When he shall hear it, he will answer thee. And in a future lesson, we're going to see exactly how this takes place. And Hezekiah does cry out to God, and God does answer him, and God does deliver Jerusalem, just like the prophet here says. But look at verse 20. And though the Lord give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet shall not thy teachers be removed in a corner any more, but thine eyes shall see thy teachers. The bread of affliction and the water of adversity. I tell you, life can be hard, can't it? What do we do when life gets hard, when we're uncomfortable, when we don't like the situation what do we do? Go our own way? No, you trust me. You do what God says and live your life in accordance with His directions. And He'll teach you. He'll show you. Your teacher won't be hid in the corner. It says, thine ears shall hear a word behind thee saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. When you turn to the right hand, when you turn to the left, God says, I'll guide you right through this. I'll give you the instructions, how to navigate this problem, how to get through this part of your life. I'll show you how to do it. Ye shall defile also the covering of the graven image of silver and the ornament of thy molten images of gold, and thou shalt cast them away as a minstrel's cloth. Thou shalt say unto it, get thee hence. All these idols you're trusting Him, look, don't trust in them. Don't trust these other ways. You'll just throw that out. Because you'll see that the Lord's way is the right way and the best way and the good way. Verse 23, then shall He give the rain of thy seed, that thou shalt sow in the ground withal, and bread of the increase of the earth, and it shall be fat and plenteous. In that day shall thy cattle feed in large pastures. Thine oxen likewise, and the young asses that ear the ground shall eat cloth provender, which hath been winnowed with the shovel and with the fan. And there shall be on every high mountain and upon every high hill rivers and streams of water in the day of the great slaughter, when the towers fall. Now the towers fall in the slaughter. That is, Assyria's going to come in and they're going to take out the evil out of this land. And you're going to be blessed, you that stay in Jerusalem. I've got all these blessings in store for you. Verse 26, moreover, the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold as the light of 7 days, in the day that the Lord bindeth up the breach of His people, and healeth the stroke of their wound. And I'm going to take care of Assyria. Here's what He says about Assyria. Verse 27, behold, the name of the Lord cometh from far, burning with His anger, and the burden thereof is heavy. His lips are full of indignation, and His tongue is a devouring fire, and His breath as an overflowing stream shall reach to the midst of the neck, to sift the nations with the sieve of vanity. And there shall be a bridle in the jaw of the people, causing them to err. Ye shall have a song as in the night, when a wholesome solemnity is kept, and gladness of heart, as when one goeth with a pipe to come into the mountain of the Lord, and to the mighty one of Israel. Now that's going to Jerusalem. That's where your safety will be when the Lord brings this scourge across the land. In verse 30, and the Lord shall cause His glorious voice to be heard, and shall show the lightning down His arm with the indication of His anger, and with the flame of a devouring fire, with scattering and tempest and hailstones. For through the voice of the Lord shall the Assyrian be beaten down. I'm going to take care of Assyria, which smote with a rod. And in every place where the grounded staff shall pass, which the Lord shall lay upon him, it shall be with tabrets and harps, and in battles of shaking will he fight with it. And then notice verse 33. This is the last verse, chapter 30. For Tophet is ordained of old. Yea, for the king it is prepared. He hath made it deep and large. The pile thereof is fire and much wood. The breath of the Lord like a stream of brimstone doth kindle it. I'm going to get back to that here at the end of the next chapter. The next chapter is a lot shorter, and it's sort of a summation of what we just went through in chapter 30. Let's go to chapter 31, and he's going to repeat this in a little different language, but it's going to be the same thing we're talking about. He repeats it. Here we go. Isaiah 31 and verse 1. Woe to them that go into Egypt for help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots because they're many, and in horsemen because they're very strong, but they look not to the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. See, they're trying to put their trust in the wrong things. They need to trust me in what I say. Verse 2. Isaiah 31, verse 2. Yet he also is wise and will bring evil and will not call back his words, but will arise against the house of evildoers and against the help of them that work iniquity. Now the Egyptians, they're men, not God, and their horses, flesh and not spirit. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is holpen, that's he that is helped, shall fall down, and they all shall fall together. For thus hath the Lord spoken unto me, like a lion, and the young lion roaring on his prey. When multitudes of shepherds is called forth against him, he will not be afraid of their voice, nor abase himself for the noise of them. So shall the Lord of hosts come to fight for Mount Zion and for the hill thereof. Out there with the sheep and the lion roar, and the multitude of shepherds come to chase that lion away. That's how I'm going to come and help Jerusalem when those Assyrians come. And they'll come zooming in here. I mean, we might think it like you call in the Air Force now. He says, as birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also, he will deliver it, and passing over it, he will preserve it. Turn ye unto him, for whom the children of Israel have deeply revolted. For in that day, here you're casting away those idols again. In that day, every man shall cast away his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which your old hands have made for you for a sin. Then shall the Assyrian fall with the sword, not of a mighty man, and the sword, not of a mean man, shall devour him, but he shall flee from the sword, and his young men shall be discomforted. It's going to be a future lesson, but I'm going to show you how that works. Those Assyrians are going to surround Jerusalem, and they're ready to destroy it. But in one night, it's all going to change. They're going to be slain with the sword, but not the sword of men. And those that remain will flee. And we'll see that in a few chapters to come in the historical section that is to come here. But now notice this last verse, the last verse of verse 31. And he shall pass over to his stronghold for fear, and his princes shall be afraid of the ensign, saith the Lord, whose fire is in Zion, and his furnace in Jerusalem. Okay, let's back up here. I want to look at the last verse of Isaiah 30 and the last verse of Isaiah 31 together and show you what's happening here. Tophet. Remember Tophet. Tophet was in the valley of Hinnom. Tophet was a place that would later be associated in Isaiah as a place of human sacrifice. And there they would bring bodies to be burned in the furnace of Tophet that was established in Gehenna. Now, as Isaiah is talking about Tophet, it's not for human sacrifice. Here, you're going to take those kings and those princes of Assyria that come up against Jerusalem, and that's where their bodies will be consumed in the furnace at Tophet, in the valley of Hinnom. Notice what it says. For the king it is prepared. I got the wood. It says fire and much wood and the breath like brimstone. Here you've got fire and brimstone consuming the bodies, prepared for the kings and the princes of Assyria, in the valley of Hinnom. And that's where the fire that is in Zion. That's the furnace that is in Jerusalem. You have that image in your head, this valley just outside Jerusalem, where they're going to consume those bodies in the fire at Tophet. Let's go to the New Testament. Let me show you what happens. in the New Testament. In Mark chapter 9, verses 43 through 44, Jesus says, "If thy hand offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed and having two hands than to go into hell." You see the word hell? That's translated from the word Gehenna. Gehenna means the valley of Hinnom. That's where Tophet was. That's where the wood was there for the fire and the brimstone to destroy the bodies of those kings. This is prepared for those kings and princes of Assyria. And look what it says of this fire. When Jesus talks about Gehenna in the New Testament, he's not talking about the actual valley outside of Jerusalem. He's talking about the place of eternal punishment where the fire is not quenched. Look what he says. Having two hands, go into hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where their worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. Matthew 25 and verse 46, they'll go away to the place of everlasting punishment. That's Gehenna. And look what he says in Matthew 25:41. "Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels." Now it's not the Assyrian kings and their princes at Tophet. This is the fire prepared for the devil and his angels in Gehenna, in hell. Woe to the rebellious children. The fire wasn't prepared for you, but it's there. And you don't want to go there. Rebellious children. Who are the rebellious children in these two chapters? Well, here they are. Here they are. They take counsel, but not of me. They cover with a covering, but not of my spirit. They have not asked at my mouth. They will not hear the law of the Lord. They say, "Cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from us." They despise his word. They say, "No." They would not. And they say, "No." They look not to the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. Rebellious children. Woe to the rebellious children. Do you see the value of going back and working ourselves through the prophet of Isaiah to help us understand God and his authority and the importance of us doing God's things God's way? Well, wait a minute. I want to live my life my way. I hear others saying I can do my things my way. Well, I can divorce anyone I want to and marry anyone I please. I can go to the church of my choice. I can worship any way I want to worship. I want to worship the way that makes me feel good. We'll do better if we do that. I want to be saved the way I want to be saved. I want something easy. I just want to call on Jesus, be my personal Savior. That'll save me. I don't want to have to comply with what he says. No. Woe to the rebellious children. That makes us want to seek God through his word. And God promises he'll be gracious and merciful. It may not be easy, but we'll see us through. He'll give us instruction, and we'll be blessed in the end. Don't say no to God. Don't be rebellious children. Oh, there's great value in going back to these old prophets and seeing what happens in that context and then thinking, well, what about us? Because He's the same God, and He wants us to be blessed. We've got to go in His way. Let's just sit still. Let's don't go out beyond what He's taught us here, but let's stay in the confines of His Word, and we shall be saved. I'm going to offer the invitation. Don't be among the rebellious children. Put all those idols away from you. That'd be like repentance, wouldn't it? Repent. Confess your faith. Be baptized into Christ. Rise up out of that water with a commitment that my way is now going to be God's way. And His way is going to be my way. And He'll teach us in His ways. I'm reminded of Proverbs 3:5-7. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. If you need to respond to the invitation, do it while we stand and sing this morning.